Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Jerron Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today, we're going to be getting into the Part 3 finale of What If Ben 10 was in the MCU, What If Ben 10 was in Avengers Infinity War. As we've seen from this series so far, Ben 10 being in the MCU has a profoundly positive effect on the overall story as a whole. With the power of the Omnitrix on his side, Ben is able to counter many of Earth's greatest adversaries. But how will he do in the final installment of this series against its climactic villain? And how will this battle shape the rest of the world moving forward? But anyway, without further ado, if you're a fan of today's video and everything else that we have on the channel, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting that has to come out now and in the future. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 3 years had passed following the events of Avengers Age of Ultron. Ben had only continued to grow in working alongside of the Avengers to keep the world safe. Various foes and threats came, but they were always defeated. In time though, the Avengers felt as though it was time to groom and cultivate the next generation, as new and younger heroes were starting to pop up all over. While Grandpa Max and Nick Fury were rebuilding S.H.I.E.L.D. the right way, following its demise at the hands of Hydra, Ben would be in charge of grooming the next generation, alongside with Gwen, Kevin, and Kai, a girl who had long since been a love interest of Ben, who the two had now started to rekindle their relationship with one another. The four would establish their own branch of the Avengers, called the Young Avengers, and they would recruit young heroes to work beside and to help lead into the future. Among them would be Peter Parker, a boy Ben was very familiar with, the two having their reunion when Ben helped Spider-Man during one of his many heroic exploits. Spider-Monkey and Spider-Man working together side by side to web up villains. Peter would be shocked to learn that Ben had been the one that had saved his life all those years ago, but all the same, he was happy to see him again. And Ben was happy to see just how much Peter had grown on his own. In doing so, he would be the first of many recruits. Among them would also be a girl named Ava Ayala, who would be known as the White Tiger. There would be a boy named Alan Albright, who, like Kevin, was the son of a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent as well as an alien, making him a hybrid. He was half Pyronite, making him the same species as that of Heat Blast, one of Ben's aliens. There was also Cooper Daniels, the grandson of a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He was also friends with Ben from his younger years, and had known him quite well. Being a technopath, he had the abilities to control technology as well as create powerful constructs. His intelligence was so impressive that Iron Man and War Machine actually gifted him the Iron Patriot suit, since Rhodes had decided to go back to using the War Machine armor, and they believed that someone of his capabilities was trustworthy of the suit, and thus Cooper Daniels became the next Iron Patriot. There was also Lucy Mann, Ben and Gwen's cousin-in-law, as well as being from the alien race of Lenape. In doing so, she had her natural abilities, being able to shapeshift as well as create blob-like constructs using her biology chemistry. In doing so, she proved to be quite adversary and dangerous. There was also the boy named Sam Alexander, who had been discovered for some time ago. The boy having a special helmet gifted to him by his father, allowing him to access the Nova Force. In doing so, granting him superhuman strength and durability, as well as the ability to fly out in space and breathe underwater without the need for air. In doing so, this was the team that Ben would form, the Young Avengers, made up of Spider-Man, White Tiger, Alan Albright, who went by the hero name Heatseeker, Cooper Daniels, aka Iron Patriot, Lucy Mann, aka Metagirl, and Sam Alexander, aka Nova. Ben would lead his own team of Young Avengers, going up against various villains from both the MCU as well as from his own past. They would face off against the likes of Dr. Animo, as well as Zombozo and Hex and Charmcaster, as well as facing off against other imposing forces such as the Hybrid, among others. But our story would actually begin in the year of 2018. Nova hadn't received any contact from his father, Richard Rider, another member of the Nova Corps, and they hadn't spoken to each other in almost 4 months. While he was worried for his father's safety, and he shared this sentiment with the team, Ben would promise to look into it for him. S.H.I.E.L.D. had its own base in outer space, known as SWORD. In doing so, SWORD had worked with many other planets and organizations, and they were familiar with the Nova Corps on Xandar. While they didn't have regular communications, they did speak with one another in case a situation was truly dire, and Ben promised to look into it for him. At the same time, Thanos, along with his lieutenants, Ebony Maw, Cole Obsidian, Proxima Midnight, and Corvus Glaive, would intercept a spaceship carrying the survivors of the Asgardian destruction from the events of Thor Ragnarok. After subduing Thor, Thanos would extract the Space Stone from the Tesseract and would kill Loki in the process. As Thanos wiped out the remaining Asgardians, hanging on to life, Heimdall would use his power via the Bifrost to send Thor to Earth. Thor would come crashing into the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York City, meeting with Doctor Strange and Wong once again. Thor would warn Strange and Wong about Thanos' plan to eradicate half the universe using the Infinity Stones. Immediately perceiving the threat, Strange would recruit Tony Stark, Captain Steve Rogers, and Bruce Banner from the Avengers headquarters as they would meet with Thor once again, confiding in their old comrade and learning of what had happened. As Thor explained to them who Thanos was and what he was trying to do. At the same time, Earth would be visited by Ebony Maw and Obsidian, as they arrived to retrieve the Time Stone from Doctor Strange. However, having to face Thor, who now had the backing of Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, who in this timeline never fought Thanos, and thus was never scared to transform, as well as Iron Man, using his new nanotech armor. The four would work together along with Wong and Strange to battle against the attackers. Before long, the battle would gain the attention of the other Avengers. Ben would transform into Accelerate and race to help, alongside Quicksilver. Spider-Man would come swinging into the battle not too long after, as he was on a school field trip of his own. And soon, the Avengers, both old and new, would join forces defeating Ebony Maw and Cole Obsidian. Once they were defeated, an emergency meeting would be held at the main Avengers headquarters immediately. All of the original Avengers, and now even the Young Avengers, would now be included. Grandpa Max, as well as Nick Fury and Maria Hill, would be in attendance as well. Even T'Challa would visit in via hologram from Wakanda, everyone being informed as Thor would explain to them everything telling them about Thanos and the Infinity Stones, and how he planned to use them all to wipe out half of life in the universe. Hearing that Thanos had already got his hands on the Space and the Power Stone immediately caused Sam Alexander to panic, knowing that the Power Stone had been on Xandar with his father in the Nova Corps. He immediately tried to contact him, however he would get no signal. As they continued on with Thor's story, they knew that they had to make preparations, as they already had 2 stones on Earth, that being with Vision in the Mind Stone and Doctor Strange in the Time Stone. As for the Soul Stone, Thor had no idea where it was, although he knew that the Reality Stone was back at nowhere with the one known as the Collector. In the meantime, the Guardians of the Galaxy will respond to a distress call from the Asgardian ship. However, when they arrived, they would see nothing but a trail of destruction, and seeing that no one had survived the attack. However, they would come across a barely alive Heimdall, who was already on the verge of death, and there was nothing that they could do to save him. He would explain to them the situation, Gamora and Nebula becoming very afraid hearing the mention of Thanos, knowing of his true plans and intentions. They would also learn that Heimdall had sent a man known as Thor to Earth, where a group known as the Avengers would be there, and that they were the only hope that the universe had. Back on Earth, Thor would tell the others that he needed to get to a place known as Nidavellir. There he could enlist the help of the Dwarf King Aether, and in doing so he could create the battle axe Stormbreaker, a weapon that would aid him to face off against Thanos. Nova also wanted to go out as well, seeing if maybe he could contact any surviving Nova Corps members. They would agree, and a ship would be made quickly for them, as they would fly out of Earth's atmosphere immediately, heading towards the great weapon maker, so that Thor could make Stormbreaker. In the process, as they were leaving, they would actually come into contact with the ship known as the Ravager. In doing so, the Guardians of the Galaxy, once noting Nova's suit, seeing him as a member of the Nova Corps, would get his attention immediately and ask what was going on. The Guardians would explain who they were and what they did, and Thor and Nova, seeing them as potential allies, would tell them where they were going and everything that happened. The Guardians now being able to confirm who Thor was, being a member of the Asgardians. When Rocket learned of where they were going, he would immediately want to leave with them, and Groot would go along as well, leaving the others to go to Earth. However, as they were leaving, Nova would give them a special shield badge, telling them to show it to the ones known as the Avengers, to find someone named Ben Tennyson. If they did so, that would help explain everything in the meanwhile, and Nova was going to send a message to put in a good word for them in the meantime. As Nova and his group headed off with Thor, the others would make their way to Earth. In doing so, they would hand over the shield badge like they were told to once they came into contact with a few members of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well as the Avengers. Ben going to meet them, as well as getting the message from Nova in time, making sure that everything was on the up and up. The Guardians would now be invited to meet with the Avengers as they discussed their plan to deal with Thanos, who in the meantime had now gained the Reality Stone and was already halfway to his conquest. The Guardians would then meet with the Avengers, now being brought up to speed on everything that was happening. Peter Quill, Star-Lord, also learning more about the planet that he had come from, and also confirming that this was his home, at least before he had been taken by Yondu all those years ago. As they spoke, they were able to gain more knowledge thanks to having Gamora and Nebula there to tell them more about the stones and about Thanos. They were also surprised to learn that Gamora would know where the Soul Stone was, making her also a target for Thanos in the meantime. Once they had all the information that they needed, the Avengers would now need to know where they were going to go in order to hold up and to prepare for the fight. T'Challa would invite them to Wakanda. There they would have the best chance of victory. The Avengers would agree, and everyone would make their way to Wakanda immediately as they prepared for Thanos' army. While they were there, Shuri would begin working to extract the Mind Stone from Vision, safely doing so that he would not be harmed in the process. As everyone gathered in Wakanda, the Avengers, combined with the forces of the Wakandan army, Iron Man would also summon his Iron Legion at once, as well as Nick Fury and Grandpa Max, calling for as many S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, both human and alien, to help aid them in the battle if possible. Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, would also come out of retirement as well to help the Avengers when he was called upon. And Fury would even send out a signal into space, summoning Captain Marvel to return, knowing that they may need her assistance. All the while, Star-Lord and Iron Man would continue to come up with a game plan for Thanos, knowing that getting to his gauntlet would need to be their primary focus. Even if he only had 2 or potentially 3 stones, that was still pretty dangerous to go up against. If they could take away the gauntlet, they would take away his strongest asset in the battle, and thus would give them an even greater chance of victory. Their main focus of their plan would be in using Ben and the Omnitrix. When Gamora and Nebula learned that the Omnitrix wielder was on Earth, they were absolutely surprised, but they believed this could be what they were looking for. The Omnitrix was known throughout the entire galaxy as being one of the more powerful weapons in all of existence, something that could actually rival all of the Infinity Stones in terms of power. And they knew that Thanos would know this. Ben now realizing that he would have the ire of the Mad Titan upon him. Eventually, Thanos and his forces would arrive to Earth, descending upon Wakanda immediately. Thanos would send out the Black Order to go and retrieve the stones, while he, in the meanwhile, would keep his attentions focused on the Omnitrix wielder, knowing fully well that he was the only one capable of matching him. From here, the War of Wakanda would take place just like before, except now it would be in even grander fashion, having the Avengers all together at once to battle against the Mad Titan and his army. It would truly be one for the ages, on par with the battle from Avengers Endgame. As the fighting went on, in the center of the battlefield, Thanos would walk forward, wiping away the enemies before him. As Ben moved on ahead, Gwen and Kevin by his side as they fought along with the other Avengers. Kevin getting his hands on more vibranium, now absorbing it and turning his whole body into the endurable form of metal, would run roughshod through many of Thanos' army, while Gwen, using her mystic abilities, along with the Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, the three proved to be a very formidable trio, also helping in keeping the Time Stone safe. As Ben set his sights on Thanos, the two of them making eye contact with one another. Deep down, Ben would feel a bit nervous, remembering his battle with Vilgax all those years ago, and feeling a strange similarity between the two. Like this was a game and he was going up against the final boss. As Thanos held up his gauntlet, showing the 3 stones that he had in his possession, Ben would quick change with the Omnitrix immediately, first transforming into Accelerate, moving too fast for Thanos to hit, before immediately quick changing and transforming into Humongosaur to outmatch the Mad Titan in size. Although with the Power Stone, Thanos would be able to knock him off. As he did, Ben would immediately transform into Jet Ray, flying high and above, blasting him with his eye beams, before getting in close and quick changing into Big Chill, becoming intangible and making it hard for Thanos to hit. As he froze half of Thanos' body, the Mad Titan would break free of the ice, knocking away Ben, who would transform into Echo Echo. As he did so, he would turn and multiply immediately, as now it seemed as though there were over 30 Echo Echoes surrounding Thanos all at once, as they sent out loud shockwave attacks at the Mad Titan, causing him to hold his hands up into his ears to try to block out the heavy sounds. The Echo Echoes would join back together at once before he transformed into Swamp Fire, blasting him with an extreme blast of heat. Thanos, however, would tank the attack before launching one of his own, blasting at Ben. Ben would then quick change once more, turning into feedback, absorbing the cosmic energy and feeling it flow through him. It felt almost too overpowering and exhilarating. However, with feedback's special ability, he was able to send it flying back towards Thanos at once, knocking the Mad Titan back on his feet. He would then transform into Armadillo, drilling into the ground to create a massive earthquake, creating a crevice to which would cause Thanos to fall into, before turning into Octaguana and freezing it all at once, trying to hold him in place long enough as more of the Avengers continued on in the attack. Thanos would have to use the full might of the Power Stone alone just to break free, as he continued on in his battle with Ben. Before long, Thor would arrive to Earth, along with Rocket, Groot, and Nova. Nova being especially pissed seeing Thanos, knowing that he was responsible for the potential death of his father, as well as the destruction of Xandar and the Nova Corps. Thor would also be angered as well, looking to avenge the Asgardians, his people. Summoning Stormbreaker, he would wipe away almost all of Thanos' army. And just then, Captain Marvel would come in as well. Using her cosmic energies, she would smash through Thanos' ship, destroying the remnants of the army as well. Before long, Thanos would find himself standing in the middle of the destruction of the grounds of Wakanda. As he looked around him, he would see all of the Avengers standing together. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Incredible Hulk, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Falcon, War Machine, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, Vision, who had now had the Mind Stone removed from him, Spider-Man, White Tiger, Nova, Groot, Rocket, Star-Lord. Even Gamora and Nebula had decided to go from hiding to joining into the battle as well. There was also Gwen and Kevin Levin as well, and also Kaya, who had come to the battle. There was also Black Widow, among others. There was Wong, Iron Patriot, Heat Seeker, Metagirl, Captain Marvel, Nick Fury, Max Tennyson, as well as the remaining armies also. They now surrounded Thanos as he looked towards them all. Thanos merely grinned, seeing this as the ultimate challenge. With his 3 stones, he channeled as much cosmic power as he could, as everyone launched their attack towards him all at once. Everyone working together, they would continue to get shots off at the Mad Titan. However, he would not go down without a fight. Ben would transform into Forearms as he charged alongside the Incredible Hulk, the two of them coming at him from both ends, a barrage of green and red, as he found himself being punched in the face over and over again. The Hulk feeding on his anger as he continued to beat down on Thanos, and Ben doing the same before the both of them were knocked away. Captain Marvel would then come out of nowhere and put Thanos in a headlock, holding him to the ground, forcing him and holding him in place. So much so that he had to take out the Power Stone and use it to its fullest extent just to blast her off to the distance. However, Scarlet Witch, along with Gwen, would also hold the Mad Titan at bay. Using their mystic energies, they would be able to constrict and hold him in place. It took every bit of their mental capacity just to keep him from moving. Even with that, he would still blast the two of them off. However, Thor would come flying in for the final charge. Iron Man using his repulsor rays, rocketing him to move even faster, as he went alongside with Stormbreaker, flinging it directly towards the Mad Titan. He attempted to use the power of the 3 stones together to try to shield himself. However, it would be pointless, as even in Infinity War, with all 6 stones in his possession, Thanos still wasn't able to stop the mighty battle axe. And now with only half the power, he wouldn't stand a chance, as Stormbreaker would plunge itself directly into his chest. As Thanos stood there in absolute shock, Thor would then push Stormbreaker even deeper into him. As he did so, Ben would immediately transform into an alien that he hadn't used in a while. The distraction of being stabbed gave Ben enough time to use Ghost Freak, an alien that he had to come to terms with. Using Ghost Freak, he entered inside of Thanos' body. Along with Mantis, they would paralyze him just long enough to take off the gauntlet. In doing so, the Mad Titan would be rendered powerless and would die in the battlefield of Wakanda. From that point on, Thanos' army would be defeated and disposed of, making sure that they would never be able to return again. With the Mind Stone safely removed, this now left the Avengers to wonder what they should do with the Infinity Stones. Even though they were able to win today, this was still too close of a call, and the last thing they needed was someone trying to gather all the stones once again. That's when Doctor Strange agreed that if he would be allowed to, then he could hide the stones in very much more secluded places, and thankfully, in doing so, no one would be able to get to them ever again. After thinking it over a bit, they debated whether or not to give Vision back the Mind Stone. However, Vision remarked that he didn't need such a thing, and that the more logical solution would be to hide it. In doing so, Doctor Strange, with help from Thor, along with Captain Marvel, would take the Infinity Stones to the farthest corners of the universe, hiding them discreetly so as to never be used again. However, Doctor Strange would still keep watch over the Time Stone. In the meantime, much rebuilding was going to be needed after the events of the Battle of Wakanda. Nova decided to leave Earth, going back to Xandar to help rebuild, and to find his father if possible. Many of the Avengers, seeing this as a bit of a swan song, decided that this battle would serve as their retirement, although they would help out if ever needed again. Iron Man would retire and start a family with Pepper Potts, who he would go on to marry. Hulk would decide to retire and go somewhere peaceful and quiet with Black Widow. Hawkeye would go back into retirement with his family on his farm. Gwen had actually caught the attention of Doctor Strange, who was impressed with her abilities and offered her a chance to study under him at the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York. Seeing this as a grand opportunity to learn more about her mystic side, as well as having a place to go that wouldn't be too far from home, she would take him up on the offer, and Gwen and Kevin would go alongside with Doctor Strange, while Gwen would begin her training. Strange seeing her as a potential suitor to become the next Sorcerer Supreme someday, if it was ever needed. Captain America would become the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Nick Fury would decide to retire, deciding to take a page out of Grandpa Max's book, the two of them deciding to help Captain America from time to time whenever he needed it. As for Wanda, she would decide to go somewhere in private with Vision, the two of them now having a chance to explore their relationship. Although Quicksilver would still visit them from time to time, whenever he wasn't still doing hero work. As for Ben would then move up. With many of the Avengers now retiring, Ben would be looked to as the new leader of the Avengers, being given the mantle by Captain America, seeing him as someone who had grown into the role and was now ready to take that lead. In doing so, as Ben moved up to become the leader of the Avengers, he would look to Spider-Man, and he would appoint him as the new leader of the Young Avengers, Peter now leading his own team of young heroes in New York, while Ben would lead the much more seasoned group. In doing so, the Earth would now be saved from the Mad Titan Thanos, as peace would reign over the universe as a whole, Ben stepping into his own as the new leader of the mighty Avengers, with many new tests to come along the way. Their first major one would appear one day as, along the skies of New York, a streak of silver would come shining throughout the sky. Ben will alert his team of Avengers immediately, as well as Director Rogers of S.H.I.E.L.D. As they gathered together, they would see, standing above New York, on something akin to a silver surfboard, would be a being shimmering in silver. He would reveal himself to be the Silver Surfer, one of the heralds of Galactus, and he announced to Earth that in 24 hours' time, the Devourer of Worlds would be upon them. As Ben looked to Captain America, they would then send out a distress signal to all heroes, both new and old, a call to arms to join together once again. As Ben looked at the Omnitrix, he realized that it was hero time, as he led the charge into the future. This concludes What If Ben 10 was in the MCU, What If Ben 10 was in Avengers Infinity War. As you can see from this trilogy, Ben 10 being in the MCU leads to probably one of the best outcomes that this timeline could ever have. And when you really stop and think about it, the reason isn't all that shocking. Granted, Ben has a lot more powerful aliens that he could definitely use in his arsenal, and he will use in the future. But in general, the Omnitrix is one of the greatest weapons ever created in fictional history, simply because the Omnitrix alone serves as a counter to many of the more powerful foes ever imagined. From Loki to Ultron to even the Mad Titan Thanos, the Omnitrix serves as the ultimate deterrent, simply because a weapon in and of itself that's capable of transforming into one of 10,000 aliens in the galaxy, assuming that you don't add more over time, Ben ultimately proves to just be too much for many of the villains to handle. Of course, there are still plenty of powerful beings within the Marvel Universe that could definitely give him a run for his money, to say the least. But still, when you have the Omnitrix on your side, more times than not, coming out on top won't be as difficult as you think it would be. But anyway, this is going to conclude the saga of What If Ben 10 was in the MCU. If you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have on the channel, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video, as we are going to be continuing Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Part 2. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.